Did you know that about 1 in 4 women will get a Candida yeast infection after antibiotic use? And many also battle recurring UTIs. If you've tried all kinds of remedies and your yeast infection or your urinary tract infection keeps coming back, you're certainly not alone. Yeast and UTIs are some of the most challenging infections because they recur so easily. In this video, you will learn what is vaginal balance and why it matters, how antibiotic use triggers vaginal imbalances, 5 reasons for recurring Candida yeast and urinary tract infections, 4 ways to restore vaginal balance naturally, and vaginal probiotic support for UTI and Candida. Hi, I'm Michelle Moore. I'm a microbiologist and a natural health educator, here to share what I've learned through my own personal experience and my research. But I'm not a doctor. This video is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. If you need any advice on what probiotics are right for you or how to deal with your yeast or vaginal imbalances, be sure to talk to your healthcare provider. When you hear the word microbiome, you may just think about your gut health, but the gut is just one part of a larger microbiome system in your body. Your entire body has many unique ecosystems of bacteria, fungus, and viruses. So each area of your body has a unique microbiome. That includes your skin, and that's a different microbiome from your mouth, which is a different microbiome from the organisms either in your eyes or your lungs. And also, there's a unique vaginal microbiome. Now, each of these unique microbiomes have a special job to do. They communicate with one another. The vaginal microbiome plays a very powerful but often overlooked role in protecting against yeast overgrowths and urinary tract infections. When it's healthy, it acts like a built-in security team, and it works by blocking harmful bacteria from traveling up into the urinary system where they can cause a UTI. The vaginal microbiome is home to billions of friendly bacteria, mostly lactobacillus species. And those lactobacillus work to protect by keeping the vaginal pH slightly acidic, and that pH is usually around 3.8 to 4.5. That lower acidity helps stop pathogens and yeast from coming in and taking over. When your vaginal microbiome is out of balance, symptoms like odor, itching, and discomfort can develop. This imbalance is often caused by taking antibiotics, but it can also occur due to stress or hormonal changes. Other crucial things that affect vaginal health are diet, hygiene practices, and sexual activity. And imbalances can even happen after recovering from an inflammatory gut infection like C. difficile. So once the good protective lactobacillus species drop in numbers, the pH will start to rise, which will then allow yeast and other microbes to start overgrowing. Antibiotics can be life-saving, but they're also like setting off a small explosion inside of your body's ecosystem. They don't just wipe out the bacteria causing the infection, they also kill many of the friendly lactobacillus species that protect the vaginal microbiome and the gut microbiome. A common example of this is a C. difficile gut infection. People are often prescribed antibiotics to stop it, but those antibiotics can also create the perfect opening for Candida yeast to overgrow. But it's not just for C. diff. This can happen after using almost any antibiotic, whether it's for a sinus infection, a urinary tract infection, a skin infection, including staph or MRSA, or some other type of infection. Yeast and Candida problems will often show up within days to even a couple weeks after finishing antibiotics. And in many cases, UTIs can follow too. It tends to be like a chain reaction. When balance is lost, harmful microbes take the opportunity to overgrow and cause secondary infections. There are 5 key reasons why Candida overgrowths and UTIs keep coming back. These infections don't just happen out of the blue. They're actually signs that the body's natural balance, the balance between good and bad bacteria, has not been fully restored yet. And there's also a surprising link between Candida, UTIs, and the health of the gut microbiome, and I'll talk more on that in just a minute. Here are the main reasons why Candida and UTI infections keep happening. The first is loss of protected bacteria. Now, antibiotics are one of the biggest triggers for both Candida overgrowth and UTIs. They don't just kill the target infection, they also kill off those protective lactobacillus species I mentioned before, and they keep both the vaginal and the urinary microbiomes acidic and well balanced. Without those good lactobacillus, yeast and UTI causing bacteria like E. coli can easily overgrow and cause repeated infections. Next are biofilms. Now, Candida and UTI bacteria, they can hide inside of these slimy layers called biofilms. Now, these biofilms make the bacteria or the Candida much harder to reach, whether it's with an antibiotic, an antifungal, even the immune system has a hard time with the biofilms. So even when symptoms clear up for a while, the infection can come back once treatment stops because the microbes were never completely removed in that protective biofilm. Third is antibiotic and antifungal resistance. Now, unfortunately, over time, the more antibiotic drugs are used, the more resistant those microbes become. And that's why some women find that the same drug that once worked will no longer help them at all. For women who've had C. difficile, the concern is even higher because as another antibiotic course could trigger a C. diff relapse. And this is one of the main reasons why many women look for a more natural and microbiome-friendly option. Fourth are diet and lifestyle triggers. High sugar diets, processed foods, and even stress can feed those Candida yeast, and they also weaken immune defenses. Even hormone changes and tight, non-breathable clothing can throw off pH balance, and that can make it easier for yeast or UTI bacteria to thrive and keep coming back. And lastly is the vaginal gut microbiome connection. Now, what most people don't realize is that many vaginal and urinary infections are actually tied to gut health. The gut and the vaginal microbiomes are so closely connected that what happens in one of them often affects the other. If the gut stays imbalanced after either antibiotics or poor diet, or even digestive issues, including things like SIBO or IBS, that imbalance can keep reseeding the vaginal and the urinary areas with unwanted microbes. Essentially, gut dysbiosis can act as a reservoir for UTI pathogens and Candida yeast species. This includes E. coli, Klebsiella, and Candida albicans. So, restoring a healthy gut ecosystem is one of the most effective ways to support long-term vaginal and urinary health. There are 4 main categories of support to help your body overcome recurring UTIs and yeast overgrowths. But before getting into these specific support mechanisms, it's important to think about this the right way. When it comes to microbes, think of rebuilding vaginal and urinary health as rebuilding an entire ecosystem. It's not just about killing off the unwanted organisms. And because your body is home to entire communities of bacteria from the top of your head to your toes, they all depend on each other. There are 4 main categories of support to help your body overcome recurring UTIs and yeast overgrowths. And in this section, I'm going to discuss the most common treatments from mainstream treatments to natural remedies. Let's first talk about the mainstream medical treatments. These are the conventional treatments you would get when you see your doctor. For yeast, treatment often includes antifungal creams and oral medications like fluconazole. For UTIs, it will include antibiotic drugs. Some common ones include nitrofurantoin, or also it's called macrobid. And there's sulfa antibiotics like the trimethoprim, sulfamethoxazole, which you'll often see as TMP-SMX. And there's even prescription vaginal suppositories. And the pros for these mainstream treatments is they can bring quick symptom relief, and they may be very necessary, especially for severe infections. Now, the cons is that the results may often be short-term. They also can disrupt the healthy gut flora and flora around the body. They can raise the vaginal pH and increase the chance of recurrence if balance is not restored afterwards. Also, these treatments come with an increased risk of antibiotic resistance and Candida infections, as well as increased risk of C. diff relapse. The next category are natural remedies and herbal supplements. Now, as I've mentioned before, E. coli is a common culprit, especially for UTI infections. In fact, it actually causes the majority, about 90% of all UTIs are from E. coli bacteria. Now, there's several clinical studies that I've reviewed, and they suggest natural options like D-mannose, cranberry, and probiotics can help prevent recurrent UTIs nearly as effectively as antibiotics, but they don't have the long-term risks or side effects that people see with the antibiotics. Now, D-mannose is one of my favorite remedies for UTIs. It's a natural, simple sugar. It makes the bladder lining slippery, and that helps stop bacteria like E. coli from sticking and forming an infection. Now, in one 6-month clinical trial, they compared D-mannose with the antibiotic nitrofurantoin, which is one of the most common antibiotics for UTIs. Now, both D-mannose and the antibiotic reduced recurrence rates to a similar degree, but the D-mannose group had fewer side effects and was better tolerated overall. Now, another great remedy is cranberry. Its activity is mostly due to PACs, which are proanthocyanidins. Now, like D-mannose, these PACs from cranberry help prevent E. coli from binding to the cells lining the bladder wall. Now, a recent Cochrane review of 50 randomized controlled trials, now this included almost 9,000 participants, found that cranberry supplements and extracts can lower the risk of getting another UTI by about 30% in people who are prone to them. Now, there's a lot of laboratory studies that also back this up, that cranberry PACs have been shown to disrupt E. coli biofilms and even reduce biofilm formation. In another laboratory study, they found cranberry PACs significantly reduced Candida albicans yeast biofilm formation in artificial urine, and that also reduce adherences to surfaces. Now, cranberry is you have to be careful with cranberry. The most effective forms are capsules, standardized extracts, and the pure juice, but this is not what you normally find in the store. You have to make sure the juices or the capsules don't contain any added sugar, as that will feed infections, and you want to look for adequate PAC dosages. Now, there are some supplements that combine D-mannose and cranberry extracts together, and from personal experience, these are fantastic to keep in your cupboard, and at any signs, the first signs of a UTI, just start taking it, and I've personally had great experience with it. I just want to put a quick plug in here for Cantharis. It's actually a well-known homeopathic remedy that's been recommended for UTIs. I've used it, and it helps with symptom relief, especially burning pain and urgency during urination. There's also some great antimicrobial herbs that can support microbial balance, such as oregano, thyme, garlic, berberine, and uva ursi. It's important to note that some herbs have both antibacterial and antifungal activity. Now, the pros to all these natural remedies, they work with your body's natural systems and they do support long-term microbial balance. They're not harsh and they don't promote antibiotic resistance. The cons are that the results may vary between individuals and they may take some time, and not all herbs are tolerated by everyone. Now, if you're curious about some of my favorite products, be sure to check out the links in the description below. The third category is diet and lifestyle. Now, yeast and Candida yeast, they just love sugar. Any fungal infection does, and so do many of the disease-causing bacteria. So cutting back on sugar, processed, factory-made foods, sugary drinks, and alcohol, while adding whole, unprocessed foods. Think about the foods that you get around the outside of the grocery store. Those can all help starve out yeast and feed beneficial bacteria. Also important to note for UTIs is make sure you stay hydrated, manage your stress, and even getting quality sleep. Those all support immune health and vaginal pH. Now, the pros here is this is all foundational for long-term health and prevention. The cons, well, it requires some consistency with the diet and lifestyle measures, as well as patience, and results will build gradually over time. Next up are probiotics and microbiome support. Taking targeted probiotics can help reseed beneficial lactobacillus strains that live naturally in the vaginal microbiome. These friendly bacteria help lower vaginal pH. They produce protective acids and they crowd out yeast and unwanted bacteria. Over time, this helps create an environment where that protective balance can return and stay that way. So probiotic pros. Probiotics work at the root level by rebuilding the body's natural defense system, not just masking symptoms. They support both gut and vaginal balance. They discourage Candida and harmful bacteria, and they promote long-term microbial harmony. The cons? Well, they may not be a cure-all for everyone. Most people get the best results when they also address the infection on multiple fronts for the best results. So the bottom line here is that long-term recovery means rebuilding the ecosystem that keeps infections from coming back. And next, I want to talk about some of my favorite probiotics when it comes to the vaginal and urinary tract microbiomes. After antibiotics, your microbiome gets wiped out by these powerful drugs, and it's not just in your gut, but through your whole body. Restoring helpful bacteria is the key to recovery, but what grows back depends on what you plant. And that's why choosing the right probiotics for the vaginal microbiome is so important. Research shows there are several key lactobacillus species that play important roles in healthy vaginal and urinary tract health, especially following antibiotic use or gut infections like C. difficile. A clinical study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine demonstrated that lactobacillus strains common to healthy vaginal flora included Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus reuteri, and Lactobacillus crispatus. These strains were associated with a reduced risk of UTIs by maintaining a balanced vaginal and urinary environment. And in this large clinical trial, women taking lactobacillus probiotics had almost the same protection as those on daily antibiotics, but with fewer side effects. Other studies confirm that these targeted probiotics can reduce infection risk, restore healthy flora, and thankfully they don't promote antibiotic resistance. So let's look at how each of these specific strains plays a distinct role. L. rhamnosus GR1 helps restore a healthy vaginal pH, and it prevents harmful bacteria from attaching to vaginal tissue. And Lactobacillus reuteri RC14 has been found to support healthy mucosal immunity, and it discourages Candida yeast from sticking to vaginal cells. Now, if you've been looking at vaginal probiotics, you may notice that L. reuteri is common to many vaginal probiotics, but it's not a dominant species on its own in the vaginal microbiome. It works best alongside other protective strains like Lactobacillus rhamnosus and crispatus. Now, L. crispatus is one of the dominant species in healthy women, and it helps maintain a resilient and protective vaginal environment over time. And then there's Lactobacillus acidophilus, strain LA5. It has been shown to help control Candida overgrowth, and in one clinical trial, a related Lactobacillus strain performed similarly to fluconazole for improving yeast-related symptoms. Now, clinical research on these specific Lactobacillus strains from the previous slide show measurable restoration of the vaginal microbiome. In published trials, beneficial Lactobacillus species in the vaginal microbiome increased by almost 200% after 1 month of consistent use, with continued improvement after 3 months. Researchers also observed a 58% drop in vaginal pH, so it's becoming more acidic and more healthy. And they also noted a significant reduction in discomfort and odor, confirming these strains help support a balanced and healthy vaginal environment. These Lactobacillus strains have also been clinically verified to survive the digestive tract and successfully colonize the vaginal microbiome. Now, once you begin taking these oral probiotics, it typically takes about 1 to 2 weeks for these beneficial lactobacillus to reach and populate the vaginal area. These clinically studied probiotic strains have been shown to help rebuild the protective vaginal microbiome after antibiotic use. They restore healthy balance and pH and work to strengthen the body's natural defenses so yeast and UTI issues are far less likely to return. One probiotic formula that uses these same clinically studied strains was designed to support women who are dealing with recurrent yeast challenges and UTI concerns. This formula also contains cranberry extract for the added urinary tract support for both bacteria, yeast, biofilms that I mentioned before. And you can find this probiotic as well as others for additional gut support at our store, embracehealthnaturals.com. So probiotics play a big role in supporting microbiome health. But some probiotics take things a step further. Certain bacillus probiotics actually make their own natural antibiotics inside the gut, where they work against harmful pathogens. They also support immunity and restore microbial balance throughout the body. In my next video, I'll show you how these powerful bacillus probiotics work for infection recovery and long-term gut support.